Okay, we may just take just one or two more seconds here and let a few more people join, but you'll get to stare at Kelly and myself for a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, want to welcome everyone to our estate planning webinar. This is a monthly webinar series that we are doing on different topics. This is our second one. Our first webinar was on just a market update, and we're going to try to do these once a month throughout the year around lunchtime. We thought it might be a good way to share some good information to some folks that may not be able to always make it to our in-person workshops. We'd love to grow the viewership of this, so please feel free to share it with your friends and family if you think there's a topic that might be interest to them. Um, we also plan to uh, post some of these recordings and maybe email out some of them to you guys if you want to review some of the information. So, and certainly if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our office through email or give us a call, and we'll be able to answer any questions you may have, hopefully. All right. So, before we get started, I wanted to first introduce Kelly, who will be joining us in just a minute, and kind of leading us through most of this presentation. Kelly Huffman is an advisor here at our office, and she is our estate planning professional. So, we'll get more familiar with her in just a second. But before we do that, I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about how we work here at Southeast Retirement Planners. If you're new, um, this is first and foremost a good resource to learn a little bit about us. If you go to seretirementplanners.com, you can log on to our website. If you're a client, this will be a good resource for you to access your accounts. You'll have to contact us first before you have that access, but you can connect up to your accounts through there. You can also refer your friends to this site. They can go and learn about each of us individually and some of the ways that we work and some things that we can help them with. And also, it's a good place just to, if you've got a question and you may feel like, hey, I just want to learn about this. There's some good resources through some white papers, podcasts that we've done in the past, and there's also some calculators on there that you can access. So check that out and visit often. Um, Here at Southeast Retirement Planners, there's five key areas of financial planning that we work in. It's always important to review those. Those key areas are preservation planning, retirement planning, tax planning, estate planning, and investment planning. Most people think that a financial advisor only works in number five right there in investment planning, but as you can see, we work in a lot more areas than just that. That's only one piece of the puzzle. Um, this slide I really like. This kind of shows how we can be of value to someone's financial lives. We like to try to help organize and be in the center of all your professional people that are involved with your financial life. As you can see at the top, starting with an attorney, some ways, and you'll learn more about this today, actually, in this webinar. But we can help you get organized before you go in to see your attorney. It may actually help you save some dollars on your billable hours. It also helps the attorney's life to be a lot easier if you go in kind of knowing what you're wanting to accomplish and have your information together. And we can help you with that. And we're also going to be reminding you when you need to go visit your attorney. And we'll be glad to communicate with them on your behalf as well. Um, to the right, you'll see accountant. We're on the front end of tax season, and we're all probably scheduling a time to go visit our accountant. Um, we'll be glad to work with them and provide information, and also point out things on your taxes each year that you need to take a look at and be proactive. And also, if you don't have an accountant that you're working with, you may want to go to check out SE Taxes, SE Tax and Consulting. You can go to setax.com. That website should be up soon, and that's a resource that you can get your taxes done this year. If you want more information about that, give us a call or shoot me an email or Kelly, and we'll be glad to uh, send that along to you. We also work with your Social Security professional. The office. I've heard war stories about people dealing with Social Security and going to get that set up. We not only will help give you some guidance there, but also work with you in scenarios on when the right time to pull the trigger on your Social Security payments and that kind of thing. And then finally, long-term care. Um, Long-term care is something that many of us, if not all of us, have had some experience either through a family member or, maybe a husband or wife that have had to deal with some sort of long-term illness or incapacitation. Being prepared for that and having a plan for that is important. So we have the ability to help you with that as well. So before we get started, I meant to mention earlier that, like I said, we're doing this on a monthly basis. We'll be having a actual in-person workshop on March 5th. So be looking for an invitation to that. That'll be here at our office, above our office in Moretz Mills. And that is going to be on managing your wealth in 2026 and proactive tax strategies. So, we're already kind of working through this year's, we're just counting and turning in our stuff for 2025, but now's the time to take action on your 2026 taxes and make some good things happen. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that and what's going on in the markets right now on the March 5th here in the office, as well as having a webinar toward the middle of the month. All right. Well, so talking about estate planning, why now? Um, After all, it could be argued that there's nothing new about estate planning. It's been around since the laws governing property ownership were created. We take those laws for granted today, but they're very important. They protect your right to own certain property and not worry about someone else, your neighbor or the government, taking it away from you. When you have ownership rights, depending on the type of property you can enjoy it, depending on the type of property, you can enjoy it for your own use, sell it, give it away. When you die, ownership will be transferred to another individual or entity according to the laws of succession, for example, to a spouse or child. Then that person has full ownership rights. The laws of succession governing the transfer of property at death are clear and specific, even though we may not always know what they are. For example, in some states, everything owned by one spouse automatically goes to the other spouse. And in other states, it's split between spouse and children. So estate planning really starts with knowing what the laws are in the state where you live. Then you can decide if you want to take the law into your own hands, so to speak, by drafting a will or a trust to name the people you want to receive your property after you die. But estate planning involves so much more than wills and trusts. How you hold title to the property in the first place can have repercussions both while you're alive and after you die. And what about your IRA? Most people sign their IRA beneficiary designation forms without giving much thought to it. But these forms are powerful estate planning tools and need to be coordinated with the rest of your estate plan. The point is that the laws governing property ownership and property transfer are very complicated, and you need to know how they would affect you and your family if you died tomorrow. If you want to override these laws in some way, which most people do, in order to make things easier on their family, you need to get the proper legal documents drawn up. We call this getting your affairs in order. So now I'm going to introduce Kelle um, officially, and we're looking forward to the information you're getting ready to provide, Kelle.
I hope I can add some value today, Les. So, so if we didn't learn anything from the coronavirus, it is that anything can happen to anyone at any time. Even in normal times, things are unpredictable. The news is full of stories of accidents and natural disasters and sudden illnesses and unexpected events. So you just never know. So that's one thing is life is unpredictable. And also death is unpredictable. It's not a it's not unpredictable in that it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. What's unpredictable is we don't know when it's going to happen. So it's very important to go ahead and prepare now for that. So that's what we want to talk about going forward now. It's just to make sure we are prepared for death whenever that happens. So advanced preparation makes life and death easier for everyone, not only you as the person, but also for your family. Death is a legal event. So once that happens, you want to make sure you have the proper documents. As Les stated earlier, you want to make sure your assets flow as you want them to flow, not as the state that you live in governs or by not having these documents in place. So in each state, the laws are different. So if you're in a different state, you need to make sure, or if you've moved from another state, you need to make sure that your documents are updated and that you know how it flows. So what we're going to talk about first is if you have no estate plan. We're going to spend just a few minutes talking about what would happen if you didn't. So that's what the first part. The next slide is, so the first document we would, and it's the easiest document, is a healthcare power of attorney. So you need to think about if you have no one to make healthcare decisions on your behalf. If you're incapacitated and you don't have anyone, who would you want that to be? So that could they would be working with your medical professionals. That's a document that a lot of your doctors and the hospitals already have. It's an easy document, so you can take take care of that one pretty simply. But that is something we also do with your attorney too. That would come in the package. But that could be one person. And then the next slide, Les, is a financial power of attorney. That it can be the same person or it can be a different person. So you may have one person in your family that's really good with medical decisions and a separate person that would be there to help pay your bills. So while you're incapacitated, you want to make sure that your power bill still gets paid. Any transactions you would need to make financially could be taken care of while you're in that state. And again, I said that these are two different documents. And then what's really, really important too, there's a lot of really important things in this presentation, but at your death, your loved ones need to know where to turn or who to turn to. So you can take a moment right now to think about what would happen if you passed away tomorrow. Would your family know what to do first? Do they know who to call? Do they know where your important papers are? Do they know where your passwords are to get to some of your? That's something that's a little newer. You need to make sure that they would know what those things are. What would if you have pets? Who's going to take care of the pets? Do they know what type of funeral arrangements that you would want? That's something I just ran into recently with the death of my grandmother is, she had everything picked out at the funeral home. We didn't have to do any of that. She had already prepaid it, which was a blessing to the whole family. We didn't have to worry about what type of casket or if it was good enough. She had already picked out all of that, but we knew she had all of her papers in place, and that was she had already had that, so we knew what she wanted. So those are so important. We knew where her will was. It made it very, very easy at her death while you're going through such a difficult time.
That's impressive. Not it's not often we hear stories that people have it put together. I'm sure that was a burden off of the family for
It
that.
was, yeah, it's very rare. She was so she had a granddaughter that did look after her and
Yeah.
encourage her to do things. So things are pretty made it pretty simple. So the other thing is so important is the laws governing property ownership, as Les kind of mentioned earlier, are meant for your protection. But sometimes it depends on how your accounts are titled. The surviving spouse may not be able to access funds right away. They may be in joint account with rights of survivorship and they would immediately get to do it with a portion of it, but is it enough? And that's something that we would work with you to go through how your accounts are titled and then how they would pass, whether they would go through your will or if they wouldn't. So we would sit down and talk with you about that because that's very important. Sometimes accounts are titled and they don't even pass through your will as you would think they would. So we want to make sure your surviving has access to enough to live off of until things are settled.
Yeah, and I think particularly, I think people think when we're talking about accounts, we're talking about the accounts we manage, but really more so important than these, people work on a daily basis out of their checking accounts. So
Mhm.
you want to make sure that they're titled correctly because you could lose access to a checking account if your name's not on it for days,
Exactly.
weeks.
Yeah.
So
So, yeah, sometimes spouses, they may have their separate ones that just have their names on it. So we would need to make sure that you knew how
right.
those flow. And that's something we can add value. And also, I'm going to jump in right here. This is not planned, but we also prepare a document called an asset map that you would have. It's your assets are all listed on one page and how they're titled, the titling. And that's something that you could provide to your attorney. They love that so that they could see how things pass also as how you're
Right.
titled, and they can help you advise you too on how to title assets. So
Yeah, people love that.
yeah, they do. So and also if you don't have a documents in place or you haven't updated them, those can make assets go to or have assets go to the wrong people. So this is Barry White for those of you that may not know who this is, but
Are you
he
going to sing for us?
I'm not gonna say I
Oh.
don't sing. I can barely talk. I much less sing. But he passed away in 2003. He was separated from his wife and had been separated for some years. And he had a longtime girlfriend, so I don't know how many years it was. And he did not go through the proper channels and have his estate documents in place. So his ex-wife received everything, not his girlfriend, nor his 9 children. So it's just something that I'm sure he was busy singing. He didn't take the time. He didn't have good advisors around him to make sure that these things are in place. So you just want that's there's some really bad experiences out there that people have, and it just makes it even more important that you get these documents in place. And also, so taxes. The tax exemption now is a lot. It's 15 million for individuals and 30 million for couples. So that's something that most of us don't have to worry about. But federal are not the only taxes. There are some states that have estate taxes. And then, so you need to make sure in your state that you're aware of those taxes. And then also, IRAs, for a lot of us, that's our largest asset. And those, when they're passed down, are are subject to income tax, not estate taxes, but income taxes. So those are some things that if they can be managed a little easier if we take care of it and on the front end of your, and as we're preparing for your documents. So,
Right. And there's, kind of to jump in here, Kelly, that's one thing we look really closely at is how can we take steps ahead of time, depending on what your situation is, with strategies that might lessen that burden or pass along more money, uh, with less taxes to your family or whoever whatever organization or family member you're trying to get the money to at your death. So
yeah,
definitely a big
yeah,
deal.
for a lot of us, our children may be in a higher tax bracket than we are.
Right.
So maybe some things we can do to work on that. So we'll just leave it at that. We could go through some.
Yeah, we could talk a whole
Yeah,
hour
we could.
about that.
Yeah, but that's something. Make sure you we'll talk about that when we have our review meetings. But and then that leads to beneficiaries may be unprepared for their new responsibilities. So like some are already in RMD state, the required minimum distribution. You're 73 and older. Your beneficiaries will then have to continue taking those required minimum distributions. And also, if it's a non-spouse beneficiary, they would have to take the IRA out within the 10 years. Those are some things that your children may not know about. And that's something that a lot of times estate plans were not discussed with that next generation back in the day. You didn't know what your parents had. They didn't talk about it. But today, the modern form of estate planning is a lot more transparent. So parents want to help their children. They need to make sure that they know how much or what they may inherit and how they would handle it once they receive it. So it's really good to have those conversations with your children, or beneficiaries up front and
So
now.
it's a lot more than just going to the attorney getting the will drawn up. You need to have some discussions and let some people know outside of just you and your attorney these days.
Exactly, exactly. So, and now we're talking about you already have your estate plan in place, but we need to keep it updated, and that's really important when you have any life event, which can be children, grandchildren, marriages, just divorce, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes, a few slides. But um, so um, a lot of times we think that we've done it. We put them in a binder and they're in somewhere, and then we don't think about it again. But this is Heath Ledger, and his story is that he had his documents in place. He had his mother and his three sisters as beneficiaries, and then he had a child. Well, whichever state he lived in, that the his the sister, he had his because he had his plan in place, his child did not inherit. He had a great family who would have disclaimed or given the money to the child, but that doesn't always happen. So that's something that you need to be aware of. And also, even Michael Jackson, in his, he was surrounded by a lot of great advisors, but he had a revocable trust prepared, and but he never funded it. So it's so important. A lot of times attorneys will do those documents, give you the notebook. It's a revocable trust, and then you don't take the next step and have your assets titled in the name of that revocable trust. So his assets passed through probate and they were held up for years. So his mother and children had to live off of an allowance from the executor. So it could have been a lot smoother and a lot easier if he had followed through. So another reason you need to update it is your assets have grown. A lot of times, if you do your documents when you're in your 20s, you don't really have a lot that have grown. You may have assets divided a certain way, but now your house is appreciated. Hopefully, your retirement accounts have appreciated. And you just need to make sure that we take a look at it and make sure that assets are going as you would want them to go.
Yeah, and particularly if you're a business owner or have a family member that owns a business, there's so many stages of the growth of businesses that you'll want to make sure you're on top of that in case something happens to you.
That's a great point, Les, as especially, with the business owners and think how it may have started out and it's grown so much and you need to
Right.
make sure you have those documents. Very good point. Or you may be to a point where due to withdrawals or um, illness, you have fewer assets that you had at some point. Hopefully, you've enjoyed your retirement and you've traveled and you've spent it on what you would like to do, but you may need to take a look at it and adjust it to make sure your assets are going and you as you would wish. So that's basically your kids are older now. A lot of times we do our documents like we did them when our kids were in their late teens and early 20s. And then you may leave it in trust for them for a certain period of time. They may be responsible now, and you don't need to have that layer there. You may want to go ahead and update your documents. The minor children, way past the age of maturity now. Maybe they are older and you do want to leave it in trust for them. They may be shown some signs that you may, want to protect it or make sure that or it can be protected from their spouse. So there's a lot of things that change as your children get older.
And we're in those discussions all the time with folks where, you know, I'm not sure they have kids that are younger and they want to protect them from other people and that kind of thing with giving them bad advice. But then also uh, they have children, like you said, that are adults that they just, don't really trust to do the right thing. And those are great discussions to have with somebody. And it's, people like a good financial advisor or an attorney can be a sounding board and help you make the right decisions and update those decisions.
That's right. Yeah. So, and that leads into your child may also marry. Well, hopefully they'll at some point will marry, and then that adds another legal ramifications of if they inherit. So you want to make sure that they inherit like as you would want to. Maybe it does share with your new daughter-in-law or son-in-law, or maybe you want to protect it for the grandchildren. So those are some things that we can talk about. And then when you have new grandchildren, you want to make sure that you update your estate plan. Even if your will of trust was written to include grandchildren, a lot of it, they're written and they're saying not to yet to be born, but so you don't disinherit them. However, it's good that you bring your documents up to date where you name them. And sometimes we have special need children or we have special need grandchildren, and that even adds another layer of reason to see an attorney so we can make sure that those assets that would you may want to go to that child are protected in the future. So there's all kinds of reasons, but um, those are just to name a few.
And Kelly, I think that was one that hits close to home for you, doesn't
It does. It does.
it?
Those
She-
grandchildren, they are some special people. Make sure they're taken care of. I've always said that's our reward for not killing our teenagers. So if you have teenagers, just hold on, it gets better.
Yeah.
So, um, and also if you've gotten divorced and or remarried, please make sure that you've updated your beneficiaries. One thing that I've seen missed in the past is your 401k because that's kind of out of mind. I know you may see that balance with the annual statement or life insurance. Those things don't get statements, and sometimes they're not top of mind. But make sure those are updated if you've gone through a divorce or remarried. So that's something that's really important. And then if you're thinking of a divorce or remarrying, that's something you need to proactively talk with your divorce attorney and your estate planning attorney to make sure that things are prepared properly on the front end. It may include a prenup, so that's something that you might need to just think about, and they would help you with that, and also just to make sure that things flow like to your children. Just if you want to keep your assets for your children, their assets for their children, all those situations just need to be some pre-planning
Yeah.
done
And,
before.
and it just keeps things from being messier than they probably will be anyway. Right.
Yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, there's a lot of emotions through those times, and that's something that you can help if you're prepared on the front end of that. So the other thing is tax laws have changed. They're always going to change. They're very complex. Ordinary people, it's hard enough for professionals to keep up with the tax law changes. They change they're effective at different dates. There's a lot that goes on to that. So I would just say for this slide, just to make sure that if you haven't talked to your financial professional attorney in a while, just make sure that are updated and that your documents flow like you want them to. I've seen some old documents which create some trust with different amounts than they would have been created if these tax laws had not changed. So it's just important to make sure that those are reviewed. And tax laws are going to change. They're going to continue to change. They're going to be different in the future. So frequent reviews and some revisions definitely frequent reviews and possibly revisions would be needed going forward.
Yeah, and particularly, I mean, as you know, we go through different political seasons. We see those changes, and I know we make a mad dash to try to get up to date ourselves on that so we can give good guidance. But like you say, it's always changing, so just have to be nimble and observant.
Yes, yes. So, and also, if you recently moved to a different state, you need to make sure your documents are updated to your current state, possibly. And also, there's some laws. If you've lived in some community property states over the years, those are really complicated, and that's something that you just need to make sure your attorney is aware of, so that they can those assets may flow differently that or may than your current state is. So those are times that you'd need to take a look at them too if you've moved, changed the states. Another is if your executor is no longer willing to serve. Sometimes when you're in your 20s, you may have your parents as your executor. As they age, as you age, you may want to look at someone else. Sometimes you appoint a friend or someone that really close to. They've either passed away or they moved away. So that's something that you just need to take a look and make sure your current executor named would be willing to serve and able to serve. So. And sometimes we change our mind of where our assets want to go. There's sometimes if you leave a portion to a charitable organization, they may have changed. You may want that to go to a different organization. You may have family members that things have changed. Just different situations change, and you want to change where your assets go. So that's really important, just to take a look at it periodically and make sure that it's how you want to the assets go, how you want them to go. And I think that's the major point for this whole presentation is we just need to look at it and
Yeah,
take a look at it
review it
periodically.
often. Right.
Yeah, so preparedness is the antidote of fear. It's a famous quote that applies to many areas of our lives. Some people fear death because they're worried that a loved one, what happens to their loved ones after they're gone. Your family will miss you, of course, but solid estate plan in place um, it would be a gift to them and a blessing to them. So I hope this presentation has opened your eyes to some issues surrounding estate planning. And what I would want you to do is make an appointment to sit down for us just to take a look and just determine what you may need. We can work with the attorney um, or, um, that you would, we'll work with them. And as I said earlier, we are really good about getting your assets listed on a sheet with how they're titled, and we can possibly talk through the decisions that you would make, or we will talk through the decisions you make, and possibly save you some time and billable hours with the attorney. So we just call us or reach out to us
All
as
right.
soon as possible. We can just hang up from the we'll have the lines open for
Yeah.
appointments.
Yeah, you certainly will want to, if you haven't had your stuff reviewed in a while, definitely want to reach out to us, particularly Kelly here at the office. She loves doing that stuff, going through it, and we love seeing it play out correctly, because it's most of the time when you're dealing with your estate plan, it's an emotional time, and having stuff lined up really makes things easier for those left behind. So it's very important. So thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
So that kind of wraps up the main portion of our webinar. We want to obviously we appreciate you for attending the webinar. We would love for you to invite some additional people to attend. If you we love to be introduced to your friends and family and coworkers. If you would like to introduce someone to us, either to attend a webinar or come to a workshop, or they may actually be needing some help right now. We would love for you just to send us their information. What happens when you send their information to us? If they're ready to come in, we'll set an appointment at their convenience to come in and talk. If not, we will add them to our mailing lists and email lists that will let them know when opportunities like this to educate themselves more, either through webinars or through our monthly newsletters, which are very valuable pieces. We will put them on that list as a friend of a good client of ours. And doing so, you also become a part of our client ambassador program, which is a very special little treat for you entrusting us to enough to introduce someone to us. Last year, we had a really nice event at a local establishment where did a wine pairing, and at that event, we had some really good food and a local chef that paired a wine with that food and gave us some history, and people loved it. We had a good food, wine, and good conversation. So it's tough to beat that. So we'd love for you to be part of our client ambassador program. Just one more look at you can see that this would be our second of the six scheduled. We haven't finished the second half schedule of our virtual workshop schedule, but you can see that we're going to do one in March on tax planning, which is kind of very appropriate for that time. Social Security planning in April, IRA planning, which you may think is not very exciting, but that's there's some moving parts that a lot of people are asking questions about, and then legacy planning. So kind of rolling back around to furthering the conversation of the states and how that may have be beneficial. So would love for you guys to join us. Would love for you to talk to people about it if you enjoyed this or know someone that's a topic they would like to be part of. So once again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you either March 5th at the live workshop or hopefully next month at our virtual webinar. Thanks.